Can you mine cryptocurrency with a Raspberry Pi? That's what we're going to answer in this video, and we're going to go through a little bit of a setup to get the Raspberry Pi configured to mine all types of alt cryptocurrencies. We won't be mining Bitcoin, obviously, but we will have the capability. Technically, you do have the capability to do this with the setup. However, it would take you probably centuries to find a block, but for Bitcoin. But the focus of this video is just to kind of go over the Raspberry Pi and see if we can start mining some crypto on it. So I'm a huge cryptocurrency avid fan. I've been in not the industry, but I've been in the tech realm of crypto since 2016, I want to say. 2015, 2016. And I've been mining consistently since 2017. One of the things that I got involved in very early on was the Raspberry Pi. I don't necessarily mine for profit, although that's definitely an advantage. I mine because I like supporting the networks. And so a very low cost budget way to do that is by using SBCs, such as a Raspberry Pi. And back when I did it was when the 3B first came out. And so now we have the 4, which is amazing because the specs on it are just through the roof compared to what it used to be. So in the beginning, it was mainly mining Magicoin, which uses the M7M algorithm. But things have kind of evolved with Magi. It's really not. It's hard to say that it's not profitable. Technically, you can still mine it on a Raspberry Pi, no problem. The issue is there's really no trading going on with that coin anymore for the most part. The last time I checked, BTC Pop was the only exchange that it was being traded on, and I don't even know if there are any active buy orders for it. It is a combo proof of work, proof of stake crypto, so it was very popular back in the earlier days, kind of when the 3Bs were out and in full force. So I do personally, I have a Raspberry Pi 4 cluster that consists of 4 gigabyte models and 8 gigabyte models. Currently, I'm mining cryptocurrencies with those. At the moment, I'm doing Gursul coin and also CPU chain. Those are kind of the big ones that I'm mining at the current time. And again, I typically do it to support these projects. But in this video, I'm going to cover how to get the miners set up on the Raspberry Pi, and then I'll do future videos for some select coins, just to kind of show you how to configure the miner, things like that. So we're just going to jump into this. Let me launch Putty. And we're going to go ahead and log in. Now I have already installed on the Raspberry Pi. I have basically a base Ubuntu 64-bit, and it's 20.04, the LTS version. It is the server edition. And so it's basically that. I've configured Wi-Fi. I've ran update and upgrade, and that's it. So we're dealing with a clean install here. And I have put together a list of instructions that you can follow. This will be in the description below. And in this video, I'll be covering what all of these steps mean. And so we're basically just going to jump in. And I'm going to rerun the update and the upgrade. There really shouldn't be anything here. They should run quick. If you're doing a fresh install, the upgrade will take a while. And I recommend rebooting before you run the other steps. It's not necessary, but it is recommended. That way you have all the latest packages in memory. So that update should not take long. And again, I am working with an 8 GB model right now. So you can see I have a 32 GB SD card and 8 gigs of RAM in this one. If we run free, we can see, yep, we've got 7.6 gigs here. So we do have the 8 GB model. From a performance standpoint, there's not a lot of difference between the 4 GB and the 8 GB. If you are going to mine random X coins, there will be a massive difference between 2 GB and 4 GB, just because the 2 GB model doesn't have enough memory to load the random X dataset in the memory. I do not recommend mining random X coins with the 2 GB model, but you can certainly do it with a 4 GB and the 8 GB. And I have done it over the past month or so with Biblecoin, merge mining Biblecoin and Monero, and it has been very profitable. Kind of to the tune of across 8 Raspberry Pis, a few of the days I was getting $3 a day, which for a Raspberry Pi that's around $50 a piece, that is actually quite profitable. So the next thing we're going to do here, so we ran the update, the upgrade, we're going to install all the dependent packages that our miners require. We're basically working with 2 miners here. We're working with xmrig, which will allow us to do random X coins. And we're also working with it's a fork of cpuminer opt, which is cpuminer optimized. That's kind of, it's got some customizations to make it run on a Raspberry Pi. So let's go ahead and install our dependencies. And that comes up to just hit yes. And this will take a few minutes, probably, to run through these dependencies and get them installed from the package sources. And then the other thing that we're going to be doing is Ubuntu 20 no longer comes with rc.local enabled from out of the box. So we're going to be setting that up and enabling that. And what that'll allow us to do is actually launch the miner on startup. So it can be a full headless system. As you can see here, I'm doing everything remotely. So we'll be setting up, and that's what these commands are for here, is to actually set up that service and get it running. And then we'll create a batch file that will then get launched on boot up that will auto run whatever miner we want to run. And it'll do it in a screen session so that we can reattach to it, which I'll cover as soon as this is done here. Okay, so that was good timing. So that just finished. So now what we want to do is, we don't have any folders. So we're going to, I'm going to start with cpuminer. This one's kind of quick. We're going to go ahead and run the git clone. This will download everything from GitHub. So you can see we now have the cpuminer opt folder. We're going to go into that folder. And here you're going to see all the code files. And what we're going to do is we're going to build it. And so we're going to use this command here. And this command is specific to the Raspberry Pi. More importantly, ARM8 processors, more specifically the A53. Oh, we got to run autogen first. My mistake. Missed my instructions there. All right, so now we're going to run configure. And this will take a minute. This is basically going to go through the system, make sure all of the dependencies are there, the compiling tools, all of that. So that's done. And now we're basically just going to call the make command. And we're going to use J4, which is basically telling it to use all 4 cores when it builds it. And I'm going to speed up through this because this will take a few minutes to compile. Okay, so now cpuminer is done compiling. So if we can then take, we can see we have the cpuminer program now. So we're going to actually copy that. So I'm going to take cpuminer and I'm going to copy it up a folder. Okay. So now, alright, so now we have cpuminer at our root. So if we run this with the help command, we can see that it's working. We can launch it. So before I launch that, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to remove the code folder because we no longer need that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install xmrig, and then we'll run a couple quick tests here. So xmrig is essentially the same process. We're going to clone the repository into a local folder. And then we're going to run this command. This is basically going to create a build folder and then move into that build folder. And then we're going to call cmake ... which is basically going to call make on the parent folder of the folder that we're on here. So we're just going to do cmake ... Okay. And now we can call make with our number of cores. So we're going to make J4. And this one will take a little bit longer than the cpuminer took. So we'll go ahead and speed up the video here as well. Alright, so xmrig is done building now. So if we look at this directory, okay. So we have our xmrig file. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a similar thing here. We're going to go ahead and copy xmrig. And we're going to copy it up 2 levels, since we're 2 levels deep right now, to xmrig. And the other thing we need to do is we need to go into the source folder. We need to go to the xmrig folder. And there's this, where's it at here? Hold on, let me go up one more level. There should be a config file. So if we go into source, here's this config JSON. So we want to copy this. And what we're actually going to do here is we're going to copy that. Oops. Up a level. And I believe, yeah. So now what we want to do is we want to move xmrig up one more level, which we can't do because we have a folder. That's okay. So let's just do xmrig miner. And we want to move the config up a level as well. Alright. So now we have this xmrig miner file. So let's see if we can execute this one. Yep. So it works as well now. Alright, so now we're just going to clean up that folder. So we're going to do remove xmrig. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a startup script. And I'm just going to name it startup.sh. And for now, I'm not going to put anything in it yet. Other than I do want to put this at the top. And this just denotes it as a shell script. And then ultimately, we would put our command here that we would want it to run on startup. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up rc.local. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and create the rc.local file. So if you run this script, this will actually handle everything for you. And what this is going to do is this is basically going to print out a couple lines here and write it to a new text file at etc/rc.local. And this is the command we're going to be doing. So we're going to be setting it up as a bash script. This is the command we're running. So we're going to do, we're going to sudo it as the Ubuntu user because I'm using the default user. If you're using a different username, you can just take out Ubuntu, replace it with your user. And we're going to launch a screen that is going to be created and detached called miner, and it's going to run our startup script. So what that's going to allow us to do is attach to that screen session if we ever want to terminate it, if we just want to see the progress of it. And then every rc.local file has to have an exit 0. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So now if we just do a nano etc rc.local, we can see our files there. So we've created that file. Now we need to set up the service. So in order to do that, we need to create this rc-local.service file. So we're going to run this. This is just going to create a file, and we're just going to copy and paste all of this text in here. This is just a standard Linux service. So we're going to do Control X and Y to save and exit. And then what we need to do is we need to make that rc.local executable. So we'll do a chmod plus X on that. So that'll make it executable. And then we're going to enable the service, and then we're going to start the service. So this will enable the service. And now this command will start that service. So now on boot up, it's going to automatically launch that startup file. So now what we want to do is we want to have it doing something, right? So if we just take cpuminer as an example, these are all the algorithms that we can play around with. So just as a quick example here, let's try, what's an easy one here? We can try, we can do CPU chain real quick, suppose. Let me, Let me just jump on one of them. Oops, not that one. Just going to jump on one of my other miners and copy the command out. Essentially what we're getting, there's a custom command for that. Actually, you know what? Make it easier. We'll do script, which is Litecoin, Doge, all those good popular coins. And what we'll do right now is we'll just use Litecoin pool, which is the most popular pool for the most part. It's the pool I use the most. So we're just going to go ahead and log in here just to make sure I have a worker. All right, so we have a test worker already. We go to help, and this should give us the URL to use. Oops. So we'll use the US East Coast URL. All right, and then our username, test, which is our worker, and our password, I think I just had X. And it's probably not going to find any shares. Litecoin's kind of, well, script in general is pretty much controlled by ASICs. But eventually it will find a share. But what we can do is we can see that it started the connection. So if I come over here to Litecoin pool, go to my account, it has turned green, meaning it is connected. And here we can see that's gonna take a while to find a share. But what we can do now is if I take this command, we'll go ahead and terminate this, and let's go into our startup script. One thing we haven't done yet is we need to make our startup script executable. Right, so we're gonna do chmod plus X on that. Now that should turn green. All right, now we're gonna modify that script. And what this will do is this will run it out of our home directory. So now if we take, let's just make sure that is working. So run our startup, and we can see our miners running. So we're going to stop that with Control-C. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially simulate what happens on boot up. So I'm going to just go to nano etc rc.local, and I'm going to copy this command and execute it. And what's going to happen here, so I executed that. You can see it's not waiting on anything on the screen. But if I type screen-r and I hit tab, it'll fill in miner. Now I can access basically that running screen session that is running our miner. And if I want to detach it, I can just do Control-A-D. It'll continue running in the background. So if we run the top, we can see cpuminer is running. And here we can see that it's using 400% CPU, which is what we want. It is using all 4 cores while it's hashing. And at any time, I can just do screen-r to reattach to the miner. And that's pretty much how you get up and running on a Raspberry Pi mining. In a future video, I'll cover CPU chain and possibly could possibly do a random X video as well. We could actually probably real quick try xmrig via the command line. And let's see if we can just get it hooked up to pro hashing. Let's see if that works. So with xmrig, you can either use that config file, or you can do command line. So I'm going to try going to pro hashing This is another platform that I like to use occasionally. They recently added randomx in here. I believe we're only going to get around 100 hashes a second, which is only 1.5 cents a day for the most part. But let's go ahead and set it up, and let's just see if it works. So we come over here. That is our URL. And we got to do -a, I think rx/0. I believe. We'll leave it out for now. Let's see if it auto detects it. xmrig is usually pretty good with auto detecting things. And then our username is 05sonicblue, and our algorithm is randomx, which with pro hashing, you put the algorithm in the password, and then you also put your worker name in the password. So let's just do pkg-config. This will become our password. And here we can see it's basically loading everything in the memory right now. So it is running. It's going to be running with 4 threads. It's allocating 2.3 gigs of memory. And this is why the 2 GB Raspberry Pi model will not work. It's not that it doesn't work. It's not efficient. It runs it in basically a low memory mode, which cuts the performance in half for the most part. So it's definitely worth it. The 2 GB model is $35. The 4 GB model, I believe, is $55. For the $20, you're definitely better off going with that model. And then I think the 8 GB model is $75. I think those are the right prices. And so here we can see it's not using huge pages, but it does detect all 8 gigs of memory. So that is good. And then anytime you can hit H, and it'll give you the hash rate per, essentially per thread. So we're running 4 threads, 1 per core. And so we're getting around 93, 94. That's probably what it's going to hover at. Again, not going to be super profitable. However, if you do merge mine Bible Pay, at least over the past couple weeks, that has been super profitable. I'm not sure if it's still up there or not. I decided to shift to some other altcoins, and so I haven't done Bible Pay in a couple days. So it may have gone down some, but definitely I would not mind just Monero with this, just because it's really not going to be that profitable. And we can see this is actually not using, unsupported non-option. It's actually trying to go to the xmrig donation pool. So let's see what we did wrong here. I don't think you do straight up. It's TCP there. Unsupported non-option argument. Oh. I took out the algorithm, but I didn't take out the /a. Yeah, okay, so unknown algorithm. So in this case, we want to do -a. I believe it's rx/0. Yeah, so now we're connected to pro hashing. Let's let it allocate, and let's make sure it shows up in our pro hashing dashboard, which I think right now I just have a FPGA miner on AutoCrypt. It's a BlackMiner F1 Mini Plus. I think I have that in pro hashing right now, and I think that's it. Yeah, so here we can see So our pkg-config worker has shown up. So it is hashing. It's not really going to give you a hash rate until it submits a share, which coming from the Raspberry Pi may take a while. Eventually it will submit a share. It's still initializing the data set. Let's just make sure it starts hashing here. Okay, so our 4 threads are ready now. Okay, so now it's hashing, and again, we're looking at that 93 to 94 hashes per second rate. But the purpose of this video was just to get it up and running, show you how to get, xmrig and cpuminer working. If you're interested in specific algorithm videos with the Raspberry Pi, definitely drop me a comment below. Let me know. If not, I'll just put out a couple videos in the future, probably one on CPU chain, because there's some specific parameters that you have to set in order to mine CPU chain with this miner. Just because it's a variation of like yes power, and so the CPU power requires some config there. But other than that, I might put a Bible Pay video up in the future as well. But drop me a comment below and let me know if there's anything you're interested in. And thank you for watching.